The ochre stone.
75,000 years ago, someone sat inside a cave on the coast of South Africa and scratched a pattern into a piece of red stone. Not food, not a weapon, a pattern. Diagonal lines crossing to form triangles, pressed in with deliberate, repeated strokes. There was no practical reason to do this. It didn't help you hunt. It didn't help you survive the night. Archaeologist Christopher Henshelwood uncovered this stone in Blombos Cave and realized something unsettling. Whoever made it was thinking in symbols. They were holding an idea in their head that had no physical use at all, and choosing to make it real anyway. That single decision separates you from every other creature that has ever walked the earth. Animals communicate. They warn, they signal, they call out danger. But none of them sit down and carve a pattern simply because it means something. This piece of ochre is one of the oldest known proofs of symbolic thought, the moment a brain started asking not just what do I need, but what does this represent? You still do this every single day, whether you're doodling in a notebook margin or choosing a tattoo. The impulse is 75,000 years old, and it was never really about survival at all.
Bone needle.
Cold changes everything. Around 40,000 years ago, the climate across Europe and Asia turned brutal, and two closely related human species faced it side by side. Neanderthals had survived ice ages before, but something shifted, and within a few thousand years, they were gone, while Homo sapiens kept spreading. Researchers studying this divide, including anthropologist Ian Gilligan, point to a strangely small object as one possible answer: the eyed needle. Homo sapiens sites from this period are full of them, carved from bone, narrow enough to thread with sinew. Neanderthal sites are not. A needle sounds small until you realize what it makes possible. Draped fur keeps wind out, but it leaks heat and lets snow in. Sewn, fitted clothing traps warmth against the body and seals the gaps. That difference could mean surviving one more brutal winter, or not. The needle wasn't just a tool, it was a way of thinking ahead, imagining a future cold night and preparing for it months in advance. Your ancestors who lived through this bottleneck were the planners, the ones who could picture a problem before it arrived. Every time you check a forecast and grab a jacket you don't need yet, you're running the exact same program.
The cave handprint.
Deep inside the caves of Chauvet and El Castillo, humans reached out and pressed their hands against stone walls, then blew pigment through hollow bones around their fingers, leaving a perfect negative outline behind. Some of these hand stencils are over 35,000 years old. Look closely at the details researchers have documented, and a strange thing shows up. Many of the hands are missing joints or fingertips, possibly from frostbite, possibly from ritual. Nobody knows for certain. But that's not really the point. The point is simpler and stranger. Someone in near total darkness, lit by nothing but a flickering torch, wanted to leave proof that they existed, not a message to anyone alive at the time. A message to whoever came after. That is an extraordinary leap. It means humans had started imagining a future audience they would never meet, and caring what that audience thought. Cave art wasn't decoration, it was the first signature. It said, in the only language available, I was here, I mattered, remember this. You still feel that pull every time you post a photo, write in a journal, or scratch your initials into a park bench. The medium changed completely. The instinct underneath it hasn't moved an inch in 35,000 years.
The obsidian mirror.
Around 8,000 years ago, in the mud-brick town of Çatalhöyük in modern-day Turkey, someone polished a piece of volcanic obsidian until its surface turned smooth and reflective enough to show a face. Archaeologist Ian Hodder, who led decades of excavation at the site, found several of these mirrors buried carefully in graves, treated as valuable enough to take into death. Before this, no human had ever seen their own face clearly, not in water, not in shadow, but as a fixed, detailed reflection they could study. Imagine that moment. Lifting a dark stone and suddenly meeting your own eyes for the first time, seeing the exact expression on your face that other people had been reading for your entire life. This changed something fundamental about identity. Once you can see yourself the way others see you, self-image becomes something you can shape, worry about, and perform. Vanity was born here, but so was self-reflection in the truest sense. The mirror didn't just show a face, it created the possibility of watching yourself from the outside, of asking, is this who I want to be? That question didn't exist before obsidian got polished smooth enough to answer it, and you have been asking it, one way or another, ever since.
The clay tablet.
By around 3,400 BCE, Sumerian scribes in Mesopotamia were pressing wedge-shaped marks into wet clay tablets, inventing what we now call cuneiform. The earliest tablets weren't poetry or law, they were receipts, grain counts, beer rations, tax records, the unglamorous bookkeeping of an early city. But something enormous had happened without anyone quite realizing it. Memory had escaped the human skull. For the first time, a thought could outlive the person who had it, stored outside a living brain, retrievable by a stranger centuries later. Before clay tablets, every idea died the moment nobody remembered it, passed down only as long as someone kept repeating it correctly. Writing broke that fragile chain. It meant a farmer's harvest could be checked without asking him. A law could apply to people not yet born. A story could travel further than any storyteller ever could on foot. This is the invention that made history itself possible, because history requires a record that survives the rememberer. Every text message, every saved file, every note app on your phone is a direct descendant of a Sumerian counting grain, sacks in mud. The tablet cracked. The idea it carried didn't. Think about how strange that would have felt to the very first scribes. They weren't just recording numbers. They were trusting a piece of dried mud to remember something so they didn't have to. That's a small act of faith you repeat every single time you save a file instead of memorizing it.
The wheel.
Around the same era, Mesopotamian potters attached a spinning disc to an axle, and the wheel entered human life, though not the way you might picture it. Its first job wasn't transportation at all. It was shaping clay faster and more evenly on a potter's wheel, letting one person produce in an hour what used to take a full day of careful hand-building. Only centuries later did someone turn that same spinning motion sideways and put it under a cart. What makes the wheel remarkable isn't the object itself. It's the underlying idea it proved, that a simple mechanical principle applied correctly could multiply human effort far beyond what muscle alone could ever manage. That single insight didn't stay contained to pottery or transport. It became the ancestor of gears, pulleys, engines, and eventually every machine you rely on without a second thought. The wheel is the moment humans stopped only using their bodies to solve physical problems and started using physics itself. Every time an elevator lifts you 30 floors in seconds, or a car covers in an hour what would take you a full day walking, you're standing on top of an idea a Mesopotamian potter accidentally discovered while trying to make a better bowl.
The clock.
For most of human history, time was something you felt rather than measured. You knew roughly when to plant, roughly when to sleep, roughly when the season would turn, guided by the sun, the stars, and your own hunger. Then, starting in medieval Europe, mechanical clocks began appearing in monastery towers, built to call monks to prayer at exact, repeatable hours. Within a few centuries, clocks spread from monasteries to town squares to factories, and something in the human experience of time itself quietly broke apart. Time stopped being a feeling and became a number, the same number for everyone, everywhere, regardless of how anyone actually felt. This sounds small. It reshaped civilization. Factories could now demand workers arrive at a precise hour rather than a rough time of day. Trains could run on shared schedules across entire countries. Meetings, deadlines, and shifts became possible in a way they simply weren't before a clock forced everyone onto the same invisible grid. You now live your entire life by that grid, checking it dozens of times a day without noticing. The clock didn't just track time, it standardized it, and in doing so, it quietly took control of your day away from the sun and handed it to a machine.
The printing press.
In 1440, a goldsmith in Mainz, Germany named Johannes Gutenberg combined movable metal type with a modified wine press, and something that used to take a monk a full year to copy by hand could now be produced by the hundreds in weeks. Before this, books were rare, expensive, and controlled almost entirely by institutions wealthy enough to own them. A single Bible could cost the equivalent of a house. Gutenberg's press didn't just make books cheaper, it broke the monopoly on ideas themselves, letting information spread faster than any authority could contain or approve it. Within decades, new ideas about religion, science, and government were moving through Europe faster than anyone in power could suppress them, sparking upheavals that reshaped entire nations. This is the pattern worth noticing. Every leap in how humans store or share a thought eventually loosens someone's grip on power. The printing press didn't just multiply pages. It multiplied who got to have a voice at all, pulling knowledge out of the hands of the few and putting it, however slowly, into the hands of everyone else who could learn to read. Within a lifetime, a farmer's son in a small German town could own more books than most kings had a century earlier. Was that ever going to end quietly? History says no. Now look at what's sitting in your pocket. A smartphone is quietly all 8 of these objects at once. It's the ochre letting you turn abstract thought into something visible, from a text to a meme to a doodle. It's the needle letting you plan and prepare for a future you haven't reached yet. It's the cave wall, broadcasting proof that you exist to an audience you'll never meet. It's the obsidian mirror staring back at you every time you check the front camera. It's the clay tablet storing your thoughts long after you've forgotten having them. It's the wheel multiplying your effort into something machines now do for you in seconds. It's the clock dictating your schedule down to the minute, buzzing when it's time to move. And it's the printing press, letting your words reach further and faster than any Gutenberg workshop ever could. You are not living apart from this history. You are holding the endpoint of it, 60,000 years of human tools condensed into a slab of glass and metal in your hand.